Are y'all ready for the legend that is Allie Stroker? Oh, I did that right on time too.
Look at that perfect intro.
Was a good girl. Did you like it?
Loved it. Loved it. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so good. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, no, I am super duper stoked. I know everyone has been blowing up my timeline, like, oh my God, you talking to Allie. So it's like a thing. It's a thing. And I'm really excited that everyone else is excited. I'm excited that you're excited. It's a lot of excitement going on. This is the energy we need in 2020. Okay?
I agree. Ooh, we have
Yeah. How's your
gotten,
2020 been?
it's been insane. I closed Oklahoma on Broadway at the end of January 2020.
Yes.
And then I was working a lot for 2 months. And truly, I needed a break so badly, like
Yes.
in a deep way. And so I feel like in some ways, this has been a gift from the universe to just slow down and actually take a break because man, I needed one so badly. But I didn't imagine like a 7 month break. So it's been a little weird. We've been sort of bouncing in and out of New York. But I'm okay. I'm doing really well.
that
How about
that
you?
that is good. For me, it has honestly been like an up and down roller coaster.
Right.
Very similar to you. Like, at the top of the year, it was the Independent Spirit Award. So I was like riding on a high that way. I was still working a full-time job during that whole stretch of like Give Me Liberty and everything else. And so I was ready to just be like, okay, now that the awards is over, it's game time. Like, let's work, let's work, let's work. And then everything shut down. And I was like, well, maybe this is a sign from the universe that, like you were saying, like, this is the time to relax. I needed to take a break and not be so concerned with what's my next gig, what's the next thing. But I also did not expect it to go this long.
No, I don't think anybody did.
Yeah. So that's why it was kind of like, girl, let's find a way to reset. Let's figure out how to, make this work in the best way that we can. So that's kind of what my focus has been. And thankfully with this idea that I have with the new narrative, it just brightens up my weeks every time I get to talk to somebody dope. So
Well, it's a
I'm
brilliant
just,
idea because it's like you
yeah,
can every week know that you're going to have a conversation that hopefully is going to inspire you to keep moving
exactly.
forward and share it. And hopefully the people that need inspiration, need to hear this conversation will then find energy to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And that was the point. And especially because this month is Disability Employment Awareness Month, I really wanted every guest that I talked to this month to be representations of success in their field. And so, of course, with you being the living legend that you are, it was like, you gotta talk to my girl Allie and figure out how she did it, what her journey was. So that way people, because working just in general is a very intimidating process for people with disabilities. And a lot of
Mhm.
people don't really know that because we get rejected so many times when we're trying to find work. And, if you're someone that wants to get in entertainment like ourselves, it's even more rejection that
Yes.
sometimes we have to really take on the chin. And a lot of people don't understand that journey. So I kind of just want to start, at the beginning of it all. What is your disability? How did you become a person with a disability? And kind of like get that out the way. So everyone's just like, wait, why are you guys in wheelchairs? Get that out the way
I
so we
love it.
can talk about the real nitty gritty stuff. So tell us
Yes.
about that story.
So, I have been in a chair for 31 years. I was injured when I was 2 years old in a car accident, and I have a spinal cord injury. And just a little bit about my perspective, I don't really know life without my chair. So my sort of side of the coin is like I love being in my chair because it's just me and it's my life, and I can't imagine being any other way because this is all I know and all I remember.
You know, I love that because there's this thing with society, and I mean, you know, it's not entirely society's fault, but it kind of is. But is that people believe that people who, especially with visible disabilities, that our goal in life is to always like walk again, to like run up mountains and like climb hills. And it's like, no, like some people are really just happy with where they're at. And how were you actually able, especially being injured at 2 and kind of growing up, you know, with the disability and injury your entire life, how did you even find that confidence? Because I'm sure, you know, like many of us, you know, we had to go through bullying at so many different ages. How did you finally get to the point where you were confident enough to really just say right now, like, I don't know life without it and I don't want life without it?
Yeah. Well, while you were speaking, I was sort of like, oh, I didn't mention that like I face challenges every single day, right? Like it's not like, oh, things are perfect, right?
Of
But what
course.
is perfect? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
to strive for perfection is to literally bang your head against a wall. It's not possible. So I think that my journey in finding my confidence, the first stop on this train was when I was introduced to theater.
Mm,
And theater really helped me learn how to be in front of people and to and I I began to understand and feel what it was like to really be seen,
mm.
right? Because out in the world people stare
Yep.
and people look at you. But when I was
Yes.
on stage, I felt like I was in control. And I think
Mm.
that that was a turning point for me, that I could take all of this attention that I felt all the time and I could flip it and I could be the one center stage with in control. And
Interesting.
that was really exciting for me. And I also, being an actress, being a singer, being a dancer, those things gave me other identities other than being just a girl in a wheelchair. And
Mm.
I had this passion and I had this drive to do something, and that was to be on stage and to be on Broadway one day.
So, what even gave you, and I'm just going to go back like one more step with that, is what even gave you the confidence to think that you could go on stage? I think because a lot of times people don't, they can't even fathom, like, because they themselves being able-bodied would have stage fright in that way. And so, you know, they're like, oh, if I can't do it, then there's no way that that person would be able to do it. So what even gave you the confidence and courage to even get on stage?
I, first of all, had really good parents who were like, Allie, you are a superstar, you can do anything. And the second part of it was that I loved it. So I
Mm,
loved being on stage. I loved becoming a character. I loved singing in front of people. I loved storytelling. In some ways, it let me leave my reality and go into
mm.
this other world. And so, and by the way, I still get stage fright to this day. Like, I still have moments of like, why do I do this? I feel like I'm going to throw up every
Yes.
single time I go out and perform, but that's part of the whole rush,
Yeah.
right? Because then
Yeah.
you're out there and you're like, whoa, I'm doing something that scares me. And
Yeah.
I like that. I get
Yeah.
like, I'm sort of like an adrenaline junkie. I like that. So for me, that's kind of the confidence also, like, still, I'm in my 30s, I still work on my confidence
Mm-hmm.
because we change and our
Yep.
perception of ourselves change.
Mm-hmm.
And so to really check in
Mm-hmm.
often about what this is saying, because it's up here, right?
Yeah.
It's fear, it's judgment of
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
So sometimes I find it helpful to write those things down, those thoughts, because it makes them less intimidating and less real because they are just fears.
It's, you know, I read in, oh my goodness, what book was it? The Law of Divine Compensation by Marianne Williamson.
Oh,
Love.
love her.
Oh,
Yeah,
if
she's
y'all
amazing.
don't know Marianne Williamson, she did try to run for president. I don't know if she's still trying to run it under a different party or not. I don't know what's going on. But at the end of the day, Marianne Williamson is a fantastic writer. So go get her books. Anyways, she, in all of her books, I can't remember the quote exactly, but in all of her books, she really emphasizes that fear is an illusion. And the only thing that is reality is love. We about to probably go off in a completely different tangent, but I don't give a damn. So, you know, and it's so, and I express that to people all the time. That's why I love when other people know it too, that fear is merely an illusion. It does not exist, no matter what your circumstances may be, disability or not. Like, you love the stage. I'm terrified of the stage. I people have been like, oh, you need to do a play. No, I don't. No, I don't.
You're
I
like, no,
know.
thank you.
Right. I know where I thrive at, okay? And I need to know that I can do another take, okay?
Yeah, you'll be in
So
front of the camera. You'll be in front of the camera.
exactly. But at the same time, it's like I understand that I have a certain level of fears, but I also understand that if I needed to be pushed in that way, I'd be able to do it because I know that it's all an illusion at the end of the day. So for you, people see you as this legend that you are, and people see you as the poster of success as a person with a disability, and a person of success, just period. Hello, Tony Award winner. So knowing that you still deal with stage fright and you still have to check in with yourself, what are those practices? Because people wouldn't think that someone who has gained as much achievements that you have would still deal with everyday things. So what do you actually do to help you kind of get through those moments of fear and fright and just going outside sometimes? Because I can only imagine, like, having a disability and getting attention from having a disability, but if someone actually knows you on top of that,
Yeah,
that
that's
can be
real.
kind of a scary thing. So how do you deal with all of that energy?
Yeah, and there's no hiding, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't
there's no
put on a
hiding.
hat. You can't put on a
Exactly.
hat and sunglasses and go to the coffee shop. So
Exactly.
I, I I think like every human being has, some fear, anxiety, overwhelm when you are in situations that feel high pressure, right?
Hmm.
But my dad is a coach. He's a sports coach. And so
Love it.
he now does like life coaching. And so I have his voice in my ear all the time, right? And I like to talk to myself a little bit about, Allie, what story are you telling yourself right now? Are you
Mm.
telling yourself the story that you can do it? Or are you telling yourself the story that you're not good enough and you can't do it?
Mm.
And so I check in with that, because
Mhm.
it's again all here. What is the story I'm telling myself today? And then the second part of this that I think is like where I have to continue to challenge myself is
Mhm.
to actually name the thing that I am most afraid of. And I'm
Mm.
most afraid, and most of the time it's I am most afraid of not being liked and not being enough.
Me too. Me too. That anytime I do this, that means I'm agreeing. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I don't know, I think that's part of what does make my work interesting
Hmm.
is that somebody who is super, super, super sure of themselves is
Hmm.
not always relatable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and you
100%.
can feel someone's ego. It's harder to connect.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like I use it in my work, in the characters that I play.
I love it. I love
So
it.
that's sort of my experience.
I I love that. I love that. I mean, from the journaling to reading books and having to check in with why you feel fearful in that moment. What is it? Is it something that, is it a narrative that you're creating on your own, or is it the actual reality? You know, because we definitely don't want y'all out there being like, oh, there's this big ass pothole in front of me and I'm afraid to go across it, but maybe I should go across it. And it's like, no, you can just go around it. That's fine. You know, don't take it that far, but you know, keep it in the guise of reality as well. Um,
Yeah, I love that. I think it's wise to know yourself,
exactly.
like to know your limitations. That doesn't make you weak, that makes you smart.
Exactly. Exactly. And so as we are, what I've been realizing from talking to every person, one of the common threads that I found is that, one, the parent support system is inevitably the most common thing with every single person as to why they feel like they have been able to be courageous in life, to be able to live the life that they wanted to live. Everyone says their parents, their mom, their dad, parents, 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 parents. And the thing that I always like to kind of give a moment to represent our parents, because there are a lot of parents that hit me up that have, you know, expressed their gratitude. Thank you for being a representation to my child. Thank you for being, you know, for doing the work that you do, creating resources for my child to eventually understand, you know, once she's old enough, and all of those kinds of things. So, one, speak about how your parents really did their job to influence you, to support you, and give you the courage that you needed to go on through life. Kind of speak to that relationship.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you this thing that my dad does. It's E plus R equals O.
E plus R equals O. What does that mean?
The events of your life plus your response equals the outcome.
Ah,
So a lot of time we have no control over the events, but we have 100% control over the outcome.
I
I mean, I'm
love
sorry, of our
the,
response.
the
So,
response, right?
right, which means we have some control over the outcome, right? So if you are challenged by something, whether it be a disability, whether it be um, finding work, whether it be your health, whatever it might be, you have a choice every day
Mm-hmm.
about how you respond to it. And I think that is a huge part of why I am who I am
Mm-hmm.
and where I am.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
And to go one step further with it, the response is is a very, very fine-tuned, delicate thing, because that's not to say that you're not allowed to feel
Mm-hmm.
pain or discouragement or rejection. That is
Mm-hmm.
a part of how you create a response that's going to give you the outcome you want, right?
Right.
You have to acknowledge what happens.
Right. 100%.
But but again, what story do you tell yourself? Are you being rejected because it's personal? Usually
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
Usually it's because somebody is looking for something else, and that's okay. And the thing
Mhm.
that I love about what you are doing is that
Mhm.
you are creating the opportunities that you want.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part, I think, of what I have realized, that when someone isn't giving me what I want, I am in the driver's seat. I
Yeah.
have so much power in this situation, to create it on my own or reach out to people to collaborate with that I
Yes.
respect, that I love, that inspire me. And so that was a huge thing from my parents. And then the
I
other
love it.
part is that we always have the opportunity to get creative. There's
Hmm.
never one answer to a
Right.
challenge. There's never
Oh,
one answer to a question,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So how can I be creative? Okay, well, I lived in New York for a long time. How
Hmm.
do I grocery shop? How do I get around the city? How do I get to the audition? These are
I was going to ask
all
all of that too, because
these
I've
are
been in New
all
York.
yeah, it's really it's like an obstacle course for
Yes,
somebody walking around. So on wheels, it's really just wild. But the
exactly.
thing about, living in New York for so many years for me was that it gave me the confidence that I could take on any location,
Mm,
any environment. If I can do
mm,
this, I can do anything. I can get around anywhere. That's not to say I didn't have to ask for help a lot,
right, of course.
but I also had to look at how my relationship with receiving and giving help. If I'm going to receive a lot of help, I need to be giving. I need to be giving and giving and
Yes,
giving so that that is a balanced scale.
yes,
You know what I'm
yes.
saying?
100,000%, 100,000%, because that's the thing too, is that I feel like in many ways there's like sometimes there tends to be an ego with disability that I'm just going to assume somebody's going to help me because I am a person with a disability, or I'm
Mm,
going to assume that someone wants to help me or whatever the case is, and it's like that's not always the case, or someone's going to help me without me even having to ask, and then it's just like, no, people don't have to do a thing.
no.
They gonna do them, you gonna do you. So unless you're advocating for yourself, unless you're speaking up for yourself, a lot of times people don't even know. And that's definitely one of the things that I always like to encourage people to do, is to advocate for themselves. and
Mm,
and kind of with that, you entering Broadway, being the first person in a wheelchair on Broadway, obviously the first one to win a Tony Award. you know what were some things that you felt like you had to advocate for yourself because you were the first in so many ways in that space of theater, and at a high level? Okay, because
mm,
Broadway is hello, not just anybody gets to be on Broadway.
yeah.
So you being the first in so many ways, in what ways did you have to advocate for yourself?
So the first part of this is that theaters in New York are accessible to patrons, but they're
Mm.
not accessible backstage for the actors. So we had to make these backstages of the two theaters that I worked at on Broadway accessible.
Mm.
And, these are old New York buildings, right? With
Yeah.
tiny staircases and tiny hallways, flights of stairs. But I mean, around accessibility, my thing is always if there is a will, there's a way.
That part.
So so
That part.
the first time I was on Broadway, they have carpenters that work
Hmm.
on the sets and work backstage
Yeah.
at these theaters, and they made the dressing room and the bathroom accessible. They were able to do that. And then when I did Oklahoma, at Circle in the Square, the theater backstage was very, very inaccessible
Mm.
inaccessible.
Yeah.
And so we had to put a chairlift in. We had to bring in a disability consultant to figure out how to put ramping backstage. And
Wow.
even with all that, I needed help every time I came in the building. So then I needed
Mm.
someone to sort of help me navigate backstage. And
Interesting.
these are huge parts of the experience then as a performer, right?
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
you have to depend on someone.
Yeah.
And this was something obviously that I was willing to do because I wanted to be on Broadway, but there was a trade. I didn't have
Hmm.
my full independence, and that is a reality in the business that I work in
Yeah.
theater. A lot of these theaters backstage are not fully accessible. The producers I have worked with have worked so hard to make it as accessible as possible, but
Mm,
that doesn't mean that I've been able to be fully independent.
mm,
And that's hard sometimes, right? That's really
yes,
hard. But at this point, and I'm sure you understand this, like there are buildings and structures that are not able to be like fully torn down and rebuilt
right,
so that you
right,
can have a job.
right.
So you've got to get, and I always just look at it, you have to get creative. You
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out what you are willing to, how far are you willing to go to make this opportunity work for you. And there might
Mm-hmm.
be people that are going to say, I don't want to work in a space that is not fully accessible.
Right.
And that is, of course, I respect that. I totally
Yeah,
get that.
absolutely.
And I think also being sort of the first person in a wheelchair working backstage in these theaters, there's a big learning curve. People
Mm,
are learning
mm-hmm.
when to ask for, when to offer help, when to not. Um,
Yeah,
and I just have had such an amazing experience working on Broadway. I love
I
it. It
love
was
it.
my dream since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, it's been incredible, but it's not to say it didn't come with lots of challenges, lots and
Mm,
lots of challenges. And so those conversations had to be had, even
yeah.
before we got into the theater. How is this going to work? Who is going to be there every single show to
Yeah.
help me, get
Yeah.
around?
And I love that you spoke on the trade-off because again, sometimes I feel like there is in many ways rightfully so, there is, the expectation like, oh, if everything isn't accessible, then clearly they don't want me here. I don't want the job. Everybody's a bad person. When it's like sometimes we have to have a little bit of understanding that the world has not caught up to our level of who we are as people with disabilities, and that we need to go into those spaces and advocate for ourselves versus feeling like the expectation just has to be there, and if it ain't there then I'm not, whatever the case is. And so I love that you talked about that trade-off, that yes, in many ways it wasn't accessible to me at first, but what I'm gaining by being on stage, living out the dream that I've had since I was a child, was worth kind of having to,
Be dependent
just
at
like the
times, yeah.
exactly, and just like the rest of the parts of our lives, just kind of figure it out as we go. So but even in those spaces, and I know a lot of people when they talk about whether they're working in an office or they're working at a restaurant or wherever they may work, that they don't want to advocate for themselves because they are afraid that they think their employer feels like that they can't do their job. So, or that they're a burden for an employer to have finally hired them, and then now I have to request for this or request for that. So you, again, being in the work that you're in and knowing that they had to make all of these changes backstage and all of these things, how did you not feel like a burden to the producers and your castmates or whoever else was there at that time?
Because I'm worth it.
Mm,
Because my disability is part of what makes me an incredible performer.
yeah.
So it's just a part of who I am. It's my whole package. And, it took a long time for me to not feel like a burden. It took a
Mm-hmm.
long time for me to not feel like a hassle to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not. You're
Yeah.
not a hassle. You have needs like every single person on this planet. And
Yes.
when you get good at articulating them,
Mm-hmm.
that conversation you can have with your boss could be a life-changing moment for both of you
Yeah.
to say, listen, this opportunity is changing my life and I love it. I need some help and I'm coming to you because I trust you.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can help me figure this out.
Yeah.
And they might not have the answers and they might be a little bit afraid,
Mm-hmm.
but that's okay. And I always encourage people to say, it's okay if you don't have the answers. We can figure it out together because I know a lot about how to make things work for my abilities and for my disability, right? And so it's not about ego, it's not about pushing and getting angry when people don't understand. It's the power of conversation, of dialogue, of words,
Mm-hmm.
and it is an opportunity to connect with somebody and say, listen, like this is scary, this is hard, this is vulnerable for me to say these things that I need,
Yes.
but I'm willing to do it and I'm willing to put myself out there because I really want to do this job to the best of my abilities. Therefore, I need a railing in the bathroom.
Right. Like, come on. All I'm
Yeah,
trying to do is pay the
yeah.
bills. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
Like,
And you would be surprised. People respond to that.
yeah.
But your tone, the
Mm-hmm.
way that you're asking, this is
Mm-hmm.
all part of the whole situation. You can't
Yes.
just, if you write a letter, is that letter aggressive or is
Yeah.
that letter wanting to collaborate
Yes.
with the team to make something possible?
I love the notion of collaboration because that's what I feel like ultimately in any time you're trying to uh, change something that has been implemented for a long time, if you are trying to change it for the good, there's a level of collaboration that has to happen. It just has to happen. It's the only way for everyone to kind of understand each other in a safe space. And I'm all about creating a safe space in that way, which is why, a lot of the content that I tend to create is about everyone to learn each other.
Mm.
Disability, able body, visibly disabled, non-visible disabilities, like for everyone to understand each other in every way that we need to, because when we advocate for ourselves, we're really advocating for the whole community. And that's the thing that I think we need to be sure that when we are advocating is that when we're asking for that rail in the damn bathroom, that it ain't just for me,
Right.
it's for everyone to come after me, whether they're able-bodied or not.
Hmm.
I know my mom has needed to use the rail before because she hurt herself. Like, it's one of those things. Like, it's something that helps everybody, And so I just love that there's the understanding of collaboration, and that knowing that you need to speak up for yourself because you're worth it, and that is just part of who you are. Because a lot of times you don't feel like that. We have what they call like internalized ableism, where we want to show and prove how able we are,
Hmm.
knowing that it's actually hurting us, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. Like, it's one of those things. And by the way, I don't know, are you down for a Q&A? I forgot to ask you that earlier.
Sure.
Okay, so I always do a Q&A with my guests at the end. So you guys, we're winding down. So if you have any questions, leave them in the question box below. Allie and I are here to answer any questions. Definitely ask Allie all the questions for sure, because she's the guest and she's the legend. So go ahead and just ask all your questions in the question box below. We will get to them. Um,
I loved something you just said about,
yeah,
it's not just for you. And I think that that's actually a great strategy on days when you don't have the strength to do it for you. Do it for the next person coming in who doesn't know how to speak up, who
yes,
isn't ready. Do it for them. Because I have to say, sometimes it's easier for me to advocate for someone else.
yes, yes. 100%.
You
It,
know,
it's that thing where it's like, when you could give advice to your friend about something, but it's hard for you to do it on your own. kind of thing. It's that same thing where it's like, sometimes it's easier to kind of take yourself out of it for the sake of someone else, because we need that. We need to be able to not just think of ourselves, and with the work and the type of community that we have to band together. Otherwise, it just ain't gonna work. The world ain't gonna get it, and it's gonna
No,
be harder that way.
it's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. And you know, with you knowing that, you feel like, well, you just said that you like to advocate. Sometimes you need to advocate for others more than yourself. It's kind of easier to do that. Do you feel a responsibility, especially with the level of success that you have, a responsibility to always be about disability, or a responsibility to be a certain type of person, because eyes are on you all the time, and you have, garnished a certain level of success? And I only say a certain level because I know you're going to be more and more successful past what you've already achieved. So as of right now, do you feel a
Yeah,
responsibility?
I do. I do feel a responsibility and I feel pressure. And some days it's too much. I'm like, I can't speak for everyone in my community. I don't have the energy to talk about disability today. Like there are days that are like that. And, I also realized that if I am so focused on how people are perceiving me, I'm not going to do the best work in the world.
Hmm.
I'm going to just be really focused on myself, which never, in my opinion, produces good work.
Right.
If you put your attention on something else, whether that be, um, the project that you're working on, the assignment you have,
Hmm.
that is going to help you excel. So I try not to put too much pressure on myself to be a certain way, even
Hmm.
though a lot of my life I have felt like I've had to be bright and cheery and positive because it's what the world wants from me. And that can feel like a lot some days because I am human and sometimes
Yes.
I don't feel bright and cheery and positive.
Girl. Okay. Okay.
It's
Like for
true.
real.
It's true. But I do think that um, I try to be real. That's
Hmm.
that's and I think that's part of why people love you so much is that you are so real and we crave that. We
Yeah.
crave authenticity. So that's something that I strive to, be my most authentic self.
Yes, I love it. I love that so much. You guys, please start leaving questions down below. We will have time for a Q&A. So now that we talked about how amazing you are and how you get through life, and all of those things have helped you gain your level of success, what would be something you want people to know about your journey that is often either overlooked? Because a lot of the times, we don't get interviewed a lot by other fellow people with disabilities. So, for people who are still curious about your life and your journey, what would be something that you want them to know that maybe they don't either often ask, or don't even think to ask about?
I think I would just share that with all of the highlights, there's been equal and maybe double the amount of challenge, heartbreak, disappointment, rejection.
Hmm.
And when you have success, people just look at that and
Yeah.
they think that's what you are. But I am as much that award as I am the years of never getting an audition, of people not even considering me for a role. That is all part of the person that ended up in this really positive place. So I think that for anybody who has a vision for their life, who has a goal, a dream, expect that there's gonna be challenge. That is literally a part of getting to your destination. It's just how it works. And then the other part of it is just not giving up.
Hmm.
Like they're throwing in the towel is not an option. Pivoting is an option, but
Yes.
throwing in the towel is not an option if, again, if that dream still resonates with you. Sometimes people change and they're like, I
Yeah.
don't want to do this anymore. And that's great. And that is awesome if you know that for sure. But if this is
Right.
something you really want,
Hmm.
working your ass off every
Yes.
single day for some piece of that dream, of that vision, of that goal. Um,
Yes.
I always also say expect nothing, appreciate everything.
Ah, I
Appreciate
love that.
everything that's coming your way right now. Every challenge, it's for you. It's all for you. You're
I love it.
creating this life, and I don't believe that anybody is handed something that they weren't meant to take on. And
Yeah.
so you have every single tool, piece of strength you need for your situation. I think that's true. I think that's true. You may not be able to access it yet. It might take years and years and years and years, but don't give up. Don't give up on your dreams. You
I love it.
deserve them. You deserve them. You deserve to succeed. You deserve, and you also deserve to fail. That is a part of the whole thing,
Yes.
right? So like part of, and that's also what makes the successes so sweet,
Yes.
is when you've tasted the failure as well.
Hmm. Because that's, girl, you are preaching right now, because I really have always felt the same way, as like, what is meant for you is for you. And once you could get to a point where you're not even offended anymore, you can't assume why you didn't get a certain job. You can't assume, sure, in a lot of ways, we may feel like, yeah, it does have something to do with our disability. But in a lot of ways, maybe you just really wasn't the person that they were looking for. And in even more ways, you didn't get that because there's something better for you to get later if you just keep on trekking on. So I love that. You guys, I see all of your questions. However, you gotta put them in the question box thing. So the little icon with the question mark, you gotta tap that, put the question there so everyone can see it. Because I see y'all going fast with these questions. I'm like, Lord have mercy. I don't know if I can scroll back that far, but please put it in that little area so that way we can see it on the screen. Allie can see it on the screen, and that she would be able to answer your questions. So, what is next, girlfriend? What you got brewing
Oh my God. Um,
that you can talk about,
this is,
obviously?
yeah, this is always the hardest question
I know I
because,
hate this question, but I always do it because people always ask. So,
yeah, but right now, a lot of stuff is like simmering on the stove. The
yeah.
thing that I will talk about is I'm putting out a middle grade book. So middle grade is for like teenagers. So it's a teenage book about a girl in a chair who discovers theater for the first time and falls in love for the first time and all these beautiful firsts. And it's a really special book, and it's called, well, actually, I'm not going to say what it's called because it's going to
Okay.
be announced soon, but
Okay.
that's coming out soon. So that's the thing I can talk about at the moment.
Yes. Oh, I love me a good book, first and
Thank you.
foremost. So when it's done, girl, send it to me. I want to see it. I would love to read the
Of
book. That is
course.
so. That is so so dope. I love that. And you guys, we're about to get to your question soon. Final question that I ask every guest. What do you want the new narrative to be for people with disabilities, and for you in particular, for people who want to get into theater and gain some success?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important that the narrative doesn't need to be about disability. So these storylines, the conflict of this person's life is not just their disability or their illness or whatever. Like that's not all of that's not the whole storyline. I just don't think that that's authentic at all.
Yes.
And then I guess I would say my other piece about what I would like the new narrative to be is that we let go of being so careful around disability. I feel like people don't ask questions, they don't engage, they don't speak up because they have to be so careful, as if disability comes with like being so fragile. And I actually think it's the opposite. I think people with disabilities are tough. And
Yeah.
I think that we're ready to be seen as fully capable, strong, contributing, members of society. And I still don't feel like that's completely there.
Y'all, give a hand clap, please.
You're the best. Oh my God.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Girl, just curtains closed. The show's done. It's over. Thank you for talking to me today. Girl, we finna keep talking after this. It's finna be a vibe. It's gonna be a vibe in a real way.
Please.
Yes, absolutely, girl. You already know. Next book I read, I'm gonna send it to you. Be like, girl, you read this book yet? So
yes, please. Thank you.
yeah, so everyone, thank you so much for joining us. If you missed any part of the interview, you could go on my Instagram and watch the interview in full on my IGTV. And you guys, one more hand clap for Allie.
Thank you.
This was
Thank you.
amazing.
Love you guys.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us, and see you next week with a new guest. Bye.
Bye.